This is now America's big problem. Yes, I'm not talking about war, not about these animals. These are creatures that came from other parts of the world. Animals and insects that have become pests in the country. There are fish that jump out of the water and hit people. There are frogs that can kill dogs and snakes that swallow crocodiles whole. All of this is true and is currently happening in America. So in this video, join me as we discover the invasive species that are slowly changing and destroying America's environment. But before that, please like and subscribe first. This means a lot to us content creators. Thank you. And now let's get started. Lionfish. If you look at it at first glance, this fish looks really beautiful. It has colorful stripes and long fins that look like they're dancing in the water. But don't be fooled, because the lionfish is one of the most destructive invaders of the sea. They came from the Indo-Pacific, but in the 1980s, they suddenly spread to the Atlantic and Caribbean. It is said that this started when some aquarium owners released their pets into the sea. And because they have no natural predators, they multiplied quickly and gradually destroyed the coral reefs. Just imagine that. A lionfish can devour dozens of fish in just one sitting. And what's worse, the females can release up to 2 million eggs each year. Because of this, they quickly wipe out native fish and disrupt the balance of the ecosystem. But how can this kind of predator be stopped? The answer is to turn them into food as well. That's why now, chefs and environmental groups are working together to make lionfish a seafood delicacy. There are even places that hold lionfish hunting tournaments, where divers compete to see who can catch the most. These measures help, but for now, the threat from these striped invaders continues. And if they can't be stopped, it's possible that the coral reefs, home to thousands of sea creatures, could completely disappear. Wild boars. If what comes to mind when you think of pigs is the pink farm-raised kind, then you're mistaken. Wild boars are like the bigger, fiercer, and more destructive cousins of farm pigs. They're like four-legged bulldozers that can destroy entire farms. How did they end up in America anyway? This is the fault of the first European settlers who brought pigs for hunting and livestock. But many escaped, and over time they gradually multiplied and mixed with domesticated pigs. The result is what experts now call super pigs. They're smarter, tougher, and harder to control than their ancestors. For farmers, they're the worst nightmare. They destroy crops, dig up the soil, and devastate wetlands. And that's not all. They also carry various diseases that can infect animals, pets, and even humans. The damage is estimated to reach billions of dollars every year, and their numbers just keep growing. So what's the solution? One of the main methods is intensive hunting. In Texas, it's not just a hobby, but an entire culture. There are festivals and bounty programs where there's a cash reward for every boar that's taken down. Some even use helicopters and thermal imaging to make it easier to locate and take them down from the air. There are also large cage traps designed to capture an entire group of boars at once. But these animals are smart. They learn to avoid them, so it's almost impossible to completely wipe them out. For now, the war against these wild boars continues, and even though their spread has slowed down because of hunting and trapping, they have no intention of backing down. The fight against wild boars is one of the fiercest battles in America's wildlife. It's a battle that isn't over yet. Giant African snail. If you think that snails are slow and do nothing but crawl, you're mistaken. The giant African snail is a monster among mollusks. Very large, voracious, and dangerous. It can grow up to 8 inches long, even longer than a human hand. It was first spotted in Florida, and since then has become a nightmare for farmers. They eat hundreds of plants, including vegetables, fruits, and tree bark. It's not only crops that are harmed. They also carry a parasite that can cause meningitis in humans. How can you stop a slow but relentless invasion? One of the unique ways is by using specially trained dogs. Yes, dogs that are trained to sniff out and track down hiding snails. It's like a high-stakes game of hide and seek. But the loser here is a creature that can destroy, devastate entire ecosystems, and threaten human health. Aside from the dogs, there are quarantine measures and campaigns to encourage the public to immediately report if they see any unusual slime trails. In some communities, even the yards are being inspected to make sure that there are no giant snails hiding. Although these measures help slow down their spread, the fight is not over yet. They move slowly. Unchecked, they can still be prevented, but may cause damage. That's why every dog, scientist, and vigilant citizen has an important role in stopping their invasion. Zebra mussels. They're small, but don't be fooled. Zebra mussels are like tiny creatures that cause huge problems. They came from Eastern Europe and arrived in America through the ballast water of cargo ships. And when they reached the Great Lakes, that's when the ordeal began. They multiply extremely fast and attach themselves everywhere, on boats, docks, water pipes, and even on other animals. Their large numbers caused ecological and economic disaster. One of the biggest problems is that they eat too much plankton. That's why native fish and other aquatic life run out of food. It's not only the environment that's impacted. Their large numbers cause buildup in pipes and equipment. They clog up and cause billions of dollars in cleaning and repair costs. What is being done to stop them? Now, boaters are required to clean and dry their boats before moving them to another body of water. Scientists are also using biological controls, such as bacteria that specifically target zebra mussels without harming other wildlife. There are also campaigns to remind everyone to check their equipment and avoid becoming aquatic hitchhikers. No matter the efforts, zebra mussels spread rapidly. And now they prove that sometimes the most dangerous invaders aren't the big ones, but those you barely notice until it's too late. Cane toads. Imagine a creature so poisonous that even just a touch of its tongue can kill an animal like a dog. That's the cane toad, one of the most notorious invaders in Florida, carrying poison that can kill animals and cause severe damage to the environment. They came from Central and South America, but they were brought to other countries like Australia and Florida to control pests in plantations. The problem is they didn't just eat pests, they ate everything in their path. Now they're multiplying rapidly, devouring native species, and they're harming animals that try to eat them. This is no ordinary frog. The cane toad has a gland on the back of its neck that releases a thick white toxin when threatened. If a dog or cat inhales or ingests it, it can lead to death. For humans, it can cause severe dizziness and illness. What are people doing in Florida? Residents are taking action. There are community patrols that go around every night using flashlights to catch cane toads. When caught, they are humanely euthanized, so they won't be able to cause any more harm. There are also places that put up toad-proof fences, and researchers are trying out pheromone traps to attract and catch them before they can lay eggs. But because they multiply so quickly, it's almost impossible to completely get rid of them. For now, the fight is about control and reducing their numbers, not total eradication. And as this battle continues, the cane toads remain as one of the most potent poisons brought by nature to America. Fire ants. Imagine you're walking barefoot on the grass on a hot day, then suddenly you're bitten over and over again. It hurts, it stings, and it feels like your skin is burning. That's fire ants, small but incredibly fierce invaders of America. They came from South America and first arrived in the United States in the 1930s. They hitched a ride on cargo shipments. Since then, they spread like wildfire. They built huge colonies underground and attacked anything they came across. They don't just cause simple itching. The bites and stings of fire ants leave welts that are extremely painful. And for some, they can even cause severe allergic reactions that can be fatal. And humans aren't the only victims. Even animals and pets are affected by their aggressive reproduction. For farmers, they're also a huge problem. They destroy crops, enter houses, and even attack newborn animals on the farm. It's estimated that billions of dollars have already been lost due to the damage caused by fire ants to agriculture and infrastructure. So what is being done against them? One of the unusual solutions is the use of parasitic forage flies. These are insects that lay their eggs directly on the bodies of fire ants. When the egg hatches, the larva eats the ant from the inside until its head is completely severed. It's like a real horror movie, but it's an effective way to reduce their numbers. Aside from this, bait traps, insecticide, and even pouring boiling water are also used to eliminate the colonies. But fire ants have incredible survival skills. When there's a flood, they can make a living raft. They come together and float on the water until they find a new place to invade. That's why, until now, fire ants remain one of the toughest enemies. They may be small, but the damage they cause is as big as a war against nature. European starling. This is a creature that is very much a pest and dangerous. In 1819, a wealthy fan of Shakespeare had an idea. He wanted to release in Central Park all the birds mentioned in the Bard's plays, and that included starlings. Only about 100 birds were released back then, but now there are over 200 million starlings spread all over North America. What's the problem with them? First, they're aggressive. They take over the nests of native birds like bluebirds and woodpeckers. That's why these birds have a hard time surviving. Second, they're a major pest in agriculture. A large flock can wipe out an entire field of grain, fruit, or berries in just a few hours. But the most dangerous of all are their flocks called murmurations. When millions of starlings fly together, it's a beautiful sight in the sky. But it can also cause great disaster. In 1960, a plane crashed after flying through a flock of starlings. Tragically, 2 people died. So what is being done against them? Farmers use noise traps and scare tactics like predator sounds to drive them away. Other places use culling programs and chemical control. Although this is dangerous to the environment, despite all efforts, they continue to multiply. One person's simple fondness for Shakespeare led to one of the worst ecological mistakes in American history. If you look at them, they look like little jewels, shiny green and copper sparkling in the sunlight. But behind their jewel-like appearance, Japanese beetles are one of the most severe pests in American gardens. They first arrived from Japan in the early 1900s, hitching a ride on plant shipments. Since then, they quickly spread and became a nightmare for farmers and gardeners. Their favorite? Almost every kind of plant. Roses, fruit trees, vegetables. If it has leaves, they'll eat it. They don't just nibble on them. They leave the leaves looking like ghosts because they eat the tissue and only the veins are left. And what's worse, it's not just the adult beetles that are the problem. Their larvae or grubs live underground, sucking on the roots of grass and slowly killing the entire lawn from below. What do people do against them? Some manually pick up the beetles and drop them into soapy water. Others use pheromone traps that attract them, but sometimes they attract more beetles than they actually catch. There's also a biological approach where nematodes are used, tiny worms that kill the larvae. Natural insecticides like neem oil are also a defense. But even though different methods are being tried, the number of Japanese beetles still keeps increasing. They're tough, fast, adaptable, and indiscriminate. That's why, even now, they're still one of the biggest enemies of gardeners and farmers. Imagine you're just relaxing on a small boat on the river, then suddenly a giant fish jumps out and hits you in the face. That's the reputation of the Asian carp, water acrobats. that have become a nightmare in America's rivers and lakes. They were first brought from Asia in the mid-1900s to help with fish farms and wastewater treatment. Their job was to eat algae and plankton. But when flooding happened in the 1970s, they escaped and spread throughout the Mississippi River basin. Since then, their population has grown like an unstoppable tidal wave. It's a big problem because they eat plankton, which is the main food of native fish. And because they reproduce so quickly, they deprive local species of food. The females can lay up to 1 million eggs each year. Just imagine if thousands of them do it at the same time, but that's not the only scary thing. Asian carp are known for their unusual behavior of jumping out of the water when startled. And because they can weigh up to 100 pounds, many fishermen and boaters have been injured by being hit by these flying fish. It's like being attacked by a big dog from the water. What is being done against them? One of the most high-tech solutions is the use of electric barriers. It's like an invisible fence underwater that prevents them from entering new areas. There are also bubble curtains and sound deterrents used to drive them away. The biggest mission now is to prevent them from reaching the Great Lakes. If that happens, America's multi-billion-dollar fishing industry could collapse. So the fight continues. It's a race against time to stop these jumping and voracious invaders. Kudzu. Imagine waking up one day to find your house, car, and even your mailbox covered by a thick blanket of vines. It's like a scene from a sci-fi movie. But in many parts of the southeastern United States, this is the reality because of kudzu. In the late 1800s, it was brought from Japan as a solution to soil erosion. Farmers were even encouraged to plant it back then. At first, it seemed like a good idea until it started growing extremely aggressively. It can grow up to 1 foot in a single day, and once it starts, almost nothing can stop it. It covers trees, buildings, and entire landscapes until the once vibrant ecosystem loses all life. The result is like a green desert where no other kinds of plants remain. The problem is, the battle isn't just on the surface. Kudzu has deep and strong roots. Even if you cut it above ground, it has enough energy below to grow back. Herbicides help, but require repeated use, making them costly and environmentally risky. However, a unique solution was found: goats. Yes, goats, known for eating almost anything, are an effective way to fight kudzu. They're used to eat the vines in the area that machines can't reach, while also helping the soil as natural fertilizer. There are now goat rental services in different states that offer eco-friendly kudzu control, one bite at a time. Kudzu isn't completely disappearing, but it's clear that people and nature are fighting to restore the balance. The vine that was once considered a solution is now one of the biggest problems, and the fight against it continues every day. Burmese python. In the middle of the Florida Everglades, there is a silent but deadly invader. The Burmese python, a giant snake that can grow over 20 feet long and swallow a whole live alligator. They are not native to America. They first arrived as exotic pets, but when owners could no longer care for them, many were released. The Everglades' hot, wet climate created ideal conditions for them to multiply, and they did. Now, thousands of pythons are scattered throughout the swamps. They devour any animal they find, such as deer, birds, raccoons, and even bobcats. With no natural predators here, they multiply and drive native species to near extinction. So what is being done to stop them? One of the unusual answers is the Python Challenge, an annual hunting competition where snake wranglers from all over the country gather. There's a cash prize for the biggest and the most caught, so it's like a combination of extreme sport and conservation. But hunting alone isn't enough. So scientists use Judas snakes, pythons with radio tags that are tracked to discover breeding grounds. There are drones with thermal imaging for visibility, plus wranglers. Despite all of this, the Burmese python remains a formidable enemy. As they continue to multiply, Florida's wildlife becomes even more endangered. The Everglades now seem like a battlefield where local animals are gradually disappearing under the silent but deadly crawl of these snakes. Spotted lanternfly. At first glance, the spotted lanternfly looks like a beautiful and harmless insect. It has bright red wings and a polka dot design. But don't be fooled, because this is one of the most destructive pests currently spreading in the northeastern United States. They came from Asia and were first spotted in Pennsylvania in 2014, most likely brought in by imported goods. Since then, they have multiplied rapidly and now attack more than 70 types of plants, from grapevines and fruit trees to hardwood trees. Their way of feeding is by sucking the sap from plants. What's worse, they leave behind a sticky residue called honeydew, which causes the growth of sooty mold that kills the plants. What do people do against them? The first rule is simple: step on them as soon as you see them. In some communities, there are lanternfly smash events where people gather to crush them together. There are also places that offer rewards for every pest caught. Aside from this, sticky tree bands are also used to catch them before they can damage the trees. But these need to be used carefully because birds and beneficial insects can also get caught. On the scientific side, natural predators like parasitic wasps are being tried as a defense against their rapid increase. Despite all the measures, the spread of the spider continues. Every year, their territory expands and they cause significant damage to agriculture and forests. The question is, can they be stopped before control over nature is lost? Nutria. If you look at them, they seem like a cross between a rat and a beaver. But nutria is one of the biggest problems in America's wetlands. They're large semi-aquatic rodents that never stop eating, and they can turn a once lush swamp into a muddy wasteland. Nutria were first brought to the United States in the early 20th century for the fur trade. At first, they seemed harmless, but when the demand for fur dropped, thousands were released, and that's when the trouble began. They gradually spread to Louisiana, Texas, and other areas and multiplied quickly. They don't just eat plants. They destroy entire ecosystems. They eat the plants that prevent coastal erosion. That's why the coastlines and habitats of many animals will gradually collapse. And it doesn't end there. They also love to dig into levees and riverbanks. They weaken flood control structures that are important for communities. So what is being done to stop them? In Louisiana, there's a bounty program where hunters are paid for every nutria tail they report. There are also chefs who are promoting nutria as food. There are recipes that make nutria gumbo or nutria tacos as a way of control and as an alternative food. But no matter what you do, they still multiply quickly. That's why it's almost impossible to completely get rid of them. The fight against nutria continues, whether through hunting, trapping, or even in the kitchen. One thing is clear: they need to be stopped if we want to save America's wetlands. Northern snakehead. Imagine you're fishing at your favorite lake and suddenly catch a fish that looks like it's straight out of a horror movie. It has a long body, sharp teeth, and can walk on land. That's the northern snakehead. It's one of the deadliest and most aggressive invasive fish in American history. They were first discovered in Maryland in 2002. They were probably dumped by aquarium owners or came from fish markets. But once they got into rivers and lakes, they spread quickly. They're apex predators. They eat small fish, frogs, crustaceans, and sometimes even other snakeheads. The most dangerous thing is, they can survive for several days, even outside of water. Because they can breathe air, they can literally walk on land to move to another lake or river. And because they have no natural predators in America, nothing is stopping them from multiplying. Some states are now holding snakehead fishing tournaments. There's a prize for the biggest and the most caught. Some restaurants have started serving snakehead as a delicacy to help reduce their numbers. Electrofishing is also used, where an electric current is applied to the water to catch them. In more extreme cases, pesticides are used. These are chemicals that kill all the fish in an area to eradicate the snakehead, but no matter what method is used, their survival remains strong and resilient. With their ability to breathe air, walk on land, and survive almost anywhere, the northern snakehead is like a monster that's not easily stopped. And for now, America's fight against this walking fish continues. House sparrows. There are birds known for their beautiful songs or colorful feathers, but house sparrows are different. Small, aggressive, and like little gangsters of the sky. They were first brought from Europe in the 1800s, supposedly to help control craps. But instead of helping, they became a big problem. They don't just steal food from native birds, they also take over their nests and sometimes even kill the original owners. Bluebird swallows and other native species have experienced a severe decline in population because of them. Even worse, they multiply quickly, especially in areas close to humans. They like cities, farms, and backyards. They build nests on lampposts, gutters, and even on traffic lights. So wherever there are people, you can be sure they're there too. What is being done against them? There are special birdhouses designed so that house sparrows can't get in, but they're safe for native species. There are also things called sparrow spookers. These are simple devices used to drive them away from nesting sites. In some places, trapping and removal are also used to reduce their numbers. But despite all of this, the house sparrows remain one of the most successful invasive birds in history. Because of their ability to adapt and reproduce, it looks like they will remain a part of the North American landscape, whether we like it or not. Argentine ants. Most ants have small colonies in their own territories, but the Argentine ants are different. They form massive super colonies that act like a single giant organism. They first arrived from South America in the late 1800s aboard trading ships, and once they settled in America, they spread rapidly. Unlike other ants that fight for territory, the Argentine ants cooperate with each other. That's why their colonies become bigger and stronger. Because of this, they quickly outcompete and drive away the native ants. And they don't just fight with other insects. They enter houses, destroy crops, and even attack beehives, putting pollinators at risk. In cities, they're also known for overrunning electrical boxes, causing short circuits and damaging appliances. What can people do to fight them? Ordinary insecticides aren't enough because even if you wipe out part of the colony, the rest will keep going. That's why researchers are trying biological control, like parasitic fungi that target Argentine ants without harming other species. Some homeowners use diatomaceous earth, a powder that can break the ant's exoskeleton, or bait traps that carry poison. But because their super colonies are so huge, it's almost impossible to completely wipe them out. So until now, the battle against Argentine ants continues. A war against tiny soldiers that move together like one giant creature. Rock pigeons. Almost everywhere you look in the city, on rooftops, in parks, under bridges, or even on your car's windshield, you'll find rock pigeons. Now, they're one of the most common birds in American cities, but they weren't originally part of the scenery here. They originated in Europe and North Africa, where they were first domesticated. But when they were brought to North America in the 1600s, many escaped and gradually formed wild populations. In the cities, they found the perfect habitat. There was plenty of food, few predators, and many places to nest. They cause harm and spread disease. Their droppings are so acidic that they can eat through cement and metal, causing damage to buildings, monuments, and vehicles. In addition, they can carry parasites like mites and fleas that cause diseases in humans. So, what are cities doing to control them? Some areas have released falcons and hawks as predators and experimented with birth control feed. They developed ways to control pigeon eggs, spikes, and netting are also commonly used to prevent them from nesting on buildings. But despite all of this, rock pigeons remain resilient and adaptable. They always find a way to survive. And it seems like they're proving that in city life, they're the real squatters who never just disappear. Brown tree snakes. Imagine you're on an island that looks like paradise, but you can't hear a single bird song. Instead, there are thousands of snakes crawling on the trees, and the electricity suddenly goes out at night. That's the reality in Guam due to the brown tree snake invasion. They came from Australia and Papua New Guinea and first arrived in Guam after World War II, most likely aboard military cargo. Because there are no natural predators on the island and there's plenty of food from birds and small mammals, they multiplied quickly. Now it's estimated that there are up to 13,000 snakes per square mile, making Guam one of the most snake-infested places in the world. They're also a threat to more than wildlife. They climb onto power lines and cause blackouts. They also enter houses, bite people, and eat pets. And because they have venom, they're dangerous, especially for children and small animals. What was done against them? Trapping and hunting were tried. But one of the most effective solutions was the airdrop of poison mice from the sky. Yes, using small parachutes, mice with acetaminophen are dropped. It's safe for other animals, but deadly for snakes. Although this helped reduce their numbers, it's almost impossible to completely get rid of the brown tree snakes. They've already caused too much damage to the ecosystem, and now officials are working hard to prevent them from spreading to other islands in the Pacific. If that happens, even more wildlife could die. The fight against this invasive species continues, and the story of the brown tree snake shows that sometimes a single creature arriving unexpectedly can change the fate of an entire island.